Hi, we're at the flow cytometry lab at the Menzies Institute, and I've got Associate Professor Andy Fleece with me, who's the head of the vaccine program for the Tasmanian Devil program appeal. Is that right?
Yep.
Yes. And he's kindly donated his time to answer some questions, see where we are with the vaccine, and to give some awareness to the cause. So yeah, if we don't mind starting with some questions. For people who don't know, what is devil facial tumor disease?
Yeah, the devil facial tumor disease is a very unusual disease. So most infectious diseases are caused by a virus or a bacteria or a fungus or a parasite. But this is actually a cancer cell that goes from one devil to the next devil and on and on. So it'd be like me getting cancer and biting you, and then you get the cancer. And this individual cancer cell that probably started around the early 90s has now killed over 100,000 devils. So most devils will die of this cancer before they reach age 3 or 4. So if devils would stop biting each other, they'd be a lot better off. So when they fight over food or when they mate, they're very violent and they're biting on each other. So that's when they usually get it on the face, because that's where most of the wounds come from. Right. Yeah. So it's a transmissible cancer. And
which
unfortunately,
is pretty rare, isn't it?
It's very rare. So the only other transmissible cancers in mammals are in dogs. There's a sexually transmitted cancer that's been going for about 8,000 years. But devils have 2 of these now. So there's devil facial tumor 1 and devil facial tumor 2. Yeah, and devil facial tumor 1 covers most of the state now, and devil facial tumor 2 is still largely in the south.
In the south. So is there any danger of it becoming zoonotic or jumping?
We don't think it's going to jump on to other species. So I think back in the early days, in the mid-2000s, they tried giving these cancer cells to some quolls, and their immune system rejected it. And that's what you'd expect between most species. So we don't think it's going to go to other ones, but they're rapidly evolving, the tumors are too. So it's hard to say, but I don't think it's probably a threat to other species.
It's obviously taken a lot of work to get even to this far. Do you see a light at the end of the tunnel now?
Well, there's good news. There's a few populations that their populations are starting to go back up. So some devils seem to be living a little bit longer. We see a few 4- and 5-year-old devils once in a while now. But unfortunately, with the devils, whenever something good happens, it seems like there's something else. So some of the genetic studies that Ruth Pye from our team is doing with the University of Sydney, and Dr. Chris Young here at Menzies also, they've zoomed in on which genes are letting those devils live longer or make them more likely to have a tumor regression. And it seems that they're losing some of their immune gene diversity to beat the tumor. But then, as we started with a minute ago, you need those genes for beating viruses, bacteria, and fungi, and parasites. So you beat the tumor, what are you going to do next in the long term?
You're vulnerable to other things, potentially.
Yeah, that's what we think is going to happen. So that's why our team's really focused on making a vaccine that can stop the devils from getting a tumor and try to clear the landscape of the tumors.
Yeah. If we didn't have a vaccine, we would lose them. That's pretty true?
Well, it's possible. So I think with the DFT1, it now covers the whole state, and the good news is that it kills most of the devils by the time they're 3, but they're always having offspring.
Yes.
So the females usually get to mate at least once and raise one set of joeys, so that's sustained the population. In the long term, is that going to recover? Are they going to start having 2 sets of joeys? That would be great. We don't know, and then with DFT2, it's pretty unpredictable what could happen with that. They have 2 transmissible cancers, so a lot of people are starting to think, well, maybe they've had one before, they've survived, but that led to this low immune gene diversity already. And if they get more and more, how many can they fight off?
Yep.
So we don't think they're going to go extinct from it in the next 20 years or something, but it's hard to predict beyond that.
What would happen to our ecology or our ecosystem if the devils were to disappear? What is the impact on our ecology?
Yeah. So from a human-centric point of view, first of all, I live on a road that has a lot of wildlife, which is great, but that means every week I'm picking up a dead animal in the road, and I take them and put them in my backyard to get them off the road, because otherwise a devil or something will scavenge on it, and then they get hit by the car.
Yes.
But if you leave the roadkill in the backyard, there's a lot of maggots there in a couple days, and those flies are hatching out, and people are swatting more and more flies with more and more roadkill. If you think about that on a much larger scale across the state, how many dead animals are out there if there's not enough devils to clean them up. And then if you start thinking about livestock, there's things like blowfly that will lay their eggs in a sheep, and then they'll hatch out, and it's really not good for the sheep. So the farmers have actually come around and thinking, oh, it's really good to have the devils. They're cleaning up these carcasses that we don't want around. And as the devil numbers have went down, it's changed the ecology of some other animals too, like brush-tailed possums. If there's devils around, they're spending their time up in the trees. They're scared. If there's no devils around, then they're spending more time on the ground. They start changing behavior, and things just start shifting a lot. And I think part of the roadkill problem in Tassie is because there's no top predator.
Yes.
The thylacine been gone for almost 100 years now, and the devil is way down. Yeah, right. So yeah, the devil plays a very important role. And actually, where devils have went down, feral cat populations often increase.
I could imagine.
And then they're very good at killing bandicoots and other native mammals. And birds. So more devils, less cats.
One of the questions I've got is why we chose this cause. So from my perspective, it wasn't solely based on the ecosystem and how it changes things, but I think from an ownership point of view and a Tassie point of view, I think the devils are really important. It's part of our heritage, it's part of our culture, it's part of everything.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that sentimental side, or is it purely a scientific?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because there's other species at risk in Tasmania, but the community is really behind the devils. I think part of it is that we lost the thylacine. It's this top predator. There was nothing like that in the world, you know. Right. And now devils being the largest carnivorous marsupial left, there's nothing like that. Yeah. If they're gone, and we have to say to our grandkids, oh, there was this amazing animal here a while ago, but we couldn't help it. Like, it would be a really sad thing. So if you just drive down a street in Tassie, you can't go more than a few kilometers without seeing a devil on some business.
Exactly,
you know? So
that's true.
It's just, it means a lot to the community, and the community really wants to help out.
Does your research get government funding? There's some government funding?
Yeah, so there's a few different ways that our vaccine research gets funded. The main one is probably from competitive Australian grants, so national grants, and our team has done really well in those, but part of the reason we've done well in those is because the community supports us. So those grants, they're quite hard to win. It's usually a 10 to 20% funding, so you might put one in 5 years in a row and get one. But if you have some philanthropic or community support or a business partner that keeps you through those low periods, you keep going, and you build the team that way. And we've been able to do that. We've had some great partners in the community that keep us ticking along when times are hard. And then once in a while you get a big one and you go hard on it. And we do work closely with the federal government or the state government and the Save the Tasmanian Devil program. So it's more efficient. Instead of us going out and trapping, we ride along with them when they're trapping. And we get a lot of information and a lot of their on-the-ground devil knowledge, and we bring our molecular immunology skills to work together.
Oh, that's excellent. Business supporting science, is that something that you could do with more of?
Yeah, it's an
I mean, it's an obvious question, but
it's been an interesting personal journey for me, because I got into science. I wanted to do pure science. I wanted to know what animals are out there and help them, and I thought we could just do it off grants and people's goodwill. So I said, let's keep the business out of it. We're just going to do the science and do it for all the right reasons. But it quickly became clear that you have to work with partners, you have to work with the government, you have to work with everybody else, and businesses often can raise a lot more money than we can. You know, the work we do here on a day-to-day basis is actually not very exciting. You know,
it's exciting to me, I must.
Pipetting, a few tiny drops. You know, so but if you get a business out there that's talking with people, or somebody that's really geared up to help raise money, it can really make the research go a lot faster.
Yeah, and I think it changes people's perceptions of the research as well, doesn't it? It makes them think it's a much bigger thing.
Absolutely, yeah.
What would success look like to you in the next 5 years with regard to the program?
Yeah, it's a good question. And within the next 5 years, I hope we're doing our vaccine in the field, and I hope we're seeing that it's making devils live longer and less likely to get the tumor. So the key variable or key thing we want to see happening is that devils live beyond 3 years of old, 3 years of age. So if we're vaccinating devils, and we'll do a control vaccine, and then we'll do the real vaccine, and hopefully the other devils do too, but if we start seeing 4 and 5 year old devils in the one we're vaccinating, that's a really good sign. And we want to start at some kind of regional areas, probably along the coast, where we can vaccinate all the devils, and then look in that population. Is this population doing better than the other ones? And if so, then we start expanding that out like a firewall and just trying to clear areas of the tumor. So within 5 years, I don't know if we won't do big areas because of the way the regulatory permits do. The most you can do on one permit is 100 devils. So as we try to get bigger, we need to actually get a veterinary license, which you need about 5 to 10 years of data to do. So initially it's starting small and try to clear some areas of the tumor, and if that looks good, then try to go bigger and clear large areas of tumors.
So the regulation actually puts a barrier to science in some respects?
Yeah, the regulations absolutely do, but with good reason. So we're making a genetically modified virus, that
which could be
words
dangerous.
just scare people, so you might want to make sure you do it right. And we've worked with the federal government on that, and they've been very good to work with on helping us see issues, is this risky, is this not risky, and getting to the permits. So the permits slow it down a lot. For a pharmaceutical company, they're going to have technical writers and lawyers and all these other people that can do that. But for our team, it was me like, well, how do I get this term? You know, and it had to figure all that out. And so I've moved a lot into writing regulatory permits, and then the rest of the team of scientists is doing a lot of the lab work. And that's where the community support comes in. It can support these other people to keep the lab work going while I'm finding the pathway to where we want to be.
Yes. How do you feel about more brands using the Devil in their marketing? So do you think that from a marketing point of view, I know that one of the programs that's been going quite a while is the eggs. More people seem to recognise that than anything else. Do you think that makes a difference on a street level? Yeah,
that the Pure Foods eggs has done a fantastic job of supporting us, and people just go into the store and they say, I'm going to buy that carton of eggs because it's got a devil on it.
I know.
And that money does come directly here. From every carton of eggs we get a little bit, and it makes it so it's not these big gaps in funding where we have to apply and, oh, we missed it this year, we've got to let a person go from the team. With those, it's pretty stable year to year with the amount of eggs people are eating, depending on the price.
Of course.
You know, but the stable ones over long term are what really allow us to have long term plans. This thing we're trying to do of making a vaccine that goes in a bait, it's not been tried in Australia before. It's been done really successfully on 5 continents, but not for a devil, not for cancer. So there's a lot of unknown things. So it was a big idea, and now we're close to trying it to find out if it'll work.
Would you mind telling us a little bit about the excellent device that you guys have come up with the baiting station and the facial recognition as it unfolds?
Yeah, I'll start with the start of it. So if you ask a kid or a farmer, how do you get a vaccine to an animal? They right away say, you put it in the food. You know, if you ask a scientist or, you know, somebody else, I don't know, you got to run them down and get them in a headlock and give them a jab, you know, but you can't do that to enough devils to make a difference. So back in Switzerland in the 70s, somebody started putting rabies vaccines. First they put it in a chicken head and gave it to a fox, and then they made a proper bait that you could manufacture on a larger scale. And there's 10 nations in Europe that don't have rabies anymore because of putting a vaccine in a bait. So that's the path we're trying to follow. So we've tested baits, we've tested a marker to tell us if an animal's eaten a bait. But then when we started putting the baits on the ground, they're meat-based bait, but possums and paddymellons and quolls were eating 75% of the baits. So we needed a way. They didn't have any vaccine, and it was just a bait at this point. But we're wasting a lot of money if we do that, and we risk, you know, if the vaccine had an adverse effect in different species. So we came up with an idea to make a smart dispenser. So we have a little shell about this big of PVC pipe, and on it there's a little microprocessor that will take 10 pictures and immediately tell if it's a devil in the picture, and then we can set it to say if 7 of the 10 pictures match a devil at 50%. Drop a bait. And that worked out really well, and we've taken that even a step further now where we can integrate a microchip scanner into it, because when devils get trapped they get a microchip in them like a dog or a cat would get. So we'll get, say, like devil XYZ was here at 10 p.m. on Tuesday, and we dropped 1 bait, and so we think that devil should be vaccinated. So it's been some really neat technology, and we're working with other groups like the Tasmanian Land Conservancy to try to apply that to quoll conservation. And we think there'll be a lot more use for it beyond just the baits that we're doing for devils.
I must say, when I saw it, it was fascinating seeing that you guys have come up with a really novel way of doing it.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting, and for lab people to get out in the field and do that, it's nice to get away from
exactly from the lab.